Alright guys, so let's cover the Razer Edge. You're gonna hear me be very critical about the Razer Edge, but then by the end of the video, you're gonna hear me talking about how much I actually really like it. I guess sometimes the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. Even if those parts seem like they were Frankenstein together. Let's get into it. So when I unboxed this for the first time, I'm going through the regular Razer unboxing. Their packaging is always nice, their box is always nice, removing the plastic, and then when I get to the device, I guess I was a bit surprised that it's made completely out of plastic, but you know, I shouldn't be. At only $3.99 for these specs that you're getting, I think that's completely acceptable, but it's not a bad plastic by any means necessary. It's a really high quality polycarbonate. It reminds me of back in the day when our phones used to be plastic, like the Nokia line. I honestly don't have a problem with it being plastic. We'll see how it ages over time. That's gonna be something to look out for in the future. But then, once I loaded everything up though, one thing that is very, very apparent, and it's these bezels. I mean, look at that. This is not 2023 level. And I really feel if Razer gets the opportunity to do a version 2 of this particular tablet or gaming device or whatever we're going to be calling it, if they can actually work with Samsung to get their own panels, and then that's bringing me back to the whole Frankenstein thing. I bet anything these are the same panels that was used in the ROG Phone 5 from last year. It's got a 6.8-inch screen with 144 hertz, and these curves and the curves around the borders of the screen looks identical to it. I honestly, I won't be surprised if they just reach out to either Samsung and Asus and was like, hey, do you have any of those extra displays from last year? We'll just buy them at a discount. Then they went to Qualcomm and they were like, we need a processor. And the Snapdragon 3X1, there's a lot of debate on Reddit and other forums trying to determine exactly what this thing is. I don't know. But what I can tell you is this performs like a Snapdragon 888. The Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 Plus on the ROG Phone 6 and on most other Android phones that came out last year are almost doubling this in terms of performance. But for $399 for a 6.8-inch 144 hertz panel, even with these specs, I still think it's a pretty good bargain when you compare it to Android phones or tablets. And then after that, Razer was like, okay, now we need a controller. Well, it's a good thing we built the Razer Kishi 2, so they bundled it with it. And then finally, Razer was like, okay, now we need an OS to run it on. Well, Android is open source and it's free. Let's just use that. Should we add anything to it? Should we customize the skin in any way? Razer was like, no. We don't want to dedicate any resources towards that. This is just going to be the most stock, bare bones Android 12 experience out there. But Razer did absolutely nothing. They have like a handful of apps. One of them is the Cortex, and the other one's the Nexus, where it's essentially just a game launcher, and you can remap the Kishi. But that's it. So using Android brings me to both a pro and a con. I mean, Android is a great operating system. It is my preferred operating system, even though I'm forced to use Apple because peer pressure from my family and friends, but that's a video for another day. But gaming on Android still isn't perfect. In fact, it is very incomplete. So for example, Genshin Impact is the game that everyone just seems to want to talk about, but there's no controller support on the Kishi. There's controller support on iPhone, but for whatever reason, it's not on Android, and I'm not able to find any workable hack to get the Kishi working with it. And then the next thing, Call of Duty Mobile, also a very popular game. It only supports Bluetooth controllers and only officially supported by the Xbox controller and the PlayStation controller. So the only way to get Call of Duty working on the Kishi is to connect an Xbox controller, plug in the Kishi, and then it works then. That seems to be the best way to play Call of Duty on this phone. And I tested out Apex Legends. Controller support wasn't working. I mean, I'm talking about big games here. And haptics. I can't get haptics to work on any single game. Not any cloud streaming game I've tried. No native Android game that I've tried. Apparently the Kishi V2 has haptics built into it, but I'm not able to test it out. So I don't know. But here's the thing though, when you find a game that works, it really just works. And then that's why when everything I've been talking about, the big bezels, the lack of proper support, the lack of me being able to get the haptics to work. Once you find a good game, everything just starts to disappear. And I know I say this in a lot of my reviews. When you forget that you're using a piece of tech and you're only concentrated on the content, then you know you have a good product. And when things work on the Razer Edge, they just do. Fortnite ran incredibly well at 90 FPS. And if you use aim by using the gyro, which is a bit weird, but I'm starting to feel that if I could get used to it, it would be better than using controllers. Not mouse and keyboard level, but I think it could be pretty decent for these type of devices. But don't judge me for what you're seeing here. I was holding it at an awkward angle and I didn't really have my settings right. And that's why I keep dying so much. Actually, that's a lie. I don't have the reaction time of a kid anymore. And also, I just kind of suck at Fortnite. I'm way too old to be playing that game. But still, though, when I found a match that's closer to my rank, I actually had a blast. And being able to combine touch controls with a controller input was awesome. And then I played Diablo Immortal, and the controller support was awesome. Actually, the Kishi 2 is an excellent controller. It feels just as good as some of the better portables out there. And another game that I always really wanted to play but never had a chance to do it was Dead Cells. I downloaded this directly onto the device, and it runs really, really, really well. When you set the FPS to unlocked with high graphics, it ran really, really good. I don't know how much FPS I was getting, but it definitely seemed over 60. I think that's a game that I'm going to enjoy playing on the Razer Edge. Once I started playing this game, I just disappear into it. And there's not much portable devices that really allow me to do that. And I did some cloud streaming on it, which I'm typically not the biggest fan of. I mean, to me, because I value low input latency and I want to have the best visual quality I possibly can. But when gaming on the Razer Edge, that still holds kind of true. But it did really well where I felt like pretty okay with it. I played a little bit of Gears and I was able to hit my active reloads over the cloud. And I'm playing this other game called Hi-Fi Rush right now. It's a timing rhythmic action game, so timing is really important, and sometimes I had some issues landing the perfect combos, but this is me sitting right next to my Wi-Fi 6E router, which unfortunately it doesn't seem like the Razer Edge supports. It supports Wi-Fi 6 but not 6E, so that's something to take note of. But I can imagine if you're trying to call a game on 5G or in a Starbucks or any kind of crowded, slower Wi-Fi connection, I can't imagine you having a great experience. Me gaming right next to my gigabit internet connection using Wi-Fi 6E was just barely acceptable to me. That's not a knock against the Razer Edge in any way. To me, that's just cloud gaming in general. Alright, so let's come back to another con. The Razer Edge does not have a good standby mode. Usually with an Android tablet or a phone, you would just set it down, it'll go to sleep, and then maybe the next day you might lose 5% battery max. With this, in 24 hours, it's dead every single time. So that's really annoying. I have to remember to either keep it charged or to turn it off completely. Hopefully that could be ironed out in a software update. And also, there's no fast charging. I've tried every single brick I possibly can. This thing just seems like it takes forever to charge. Okay, so let's go back to some positives. The headphone jack is pretty good on the Kishi V2. The reason why I say the Kishi V2 is the actual Razer Edge does not have a headphone port on it. If you want headphone support, you do have to be hooked up to the Kishi V2. But the headphone quality does sound good. The noise level seemed low, and the amp seemed sufficient to push my Sennheiser's HD6XX. Those are sonically the best headphones that I have currently, and I was pretty happy with the way everything sounded. So there are some good gaming experiences to be had, but the thing is, the Razer Edge doesn't live in a vacuum. There's some stiff competition. You can go with the Nintendo Switch. And also, I mean, in 2023, the Switch is still a thing. And there's just way too many games that you can only play on Nintendo that you can't on any other system. And they're roughly the same price. So it's not my place to tell you which one to choose over the other. Honestly, even though they're both portable gaming devices, they are different devices and have a different target audience in mind. And, you know, pros and cons of gaming on Android, but one of the pros of the Razer is you're getting an Android device. So it's more than just a gaming device. You can watch your movies on it. There's a full YouTube player on it. Google Chrome, access to Gmail, the entire suite of Android is available to you on this device. This actually does serve multiple purposes. On this massive side here with the AOC Zo, I mean, this is essentially a PC, an entire PC in a portable form. So you have everything available to you too. But these typically run a little bit more. This was over $1,000. I think this particular configuration was like $1,700, which is a bit nuts. And then there's a Steam Deck. Honestly, unless you know you want an Android tablet to game on, I feel like the Steam Deck is just overall a better system. You have access to your Steam library, not all games, but a lot of them. And if you wanted to, you could install Windows on it, and you can just do the whole. You could just go through so much stuff with the Steam Deck. The controls are better on the Steam Deck. You got those touchpads, which I'm still not sure if I like them or not. And it's just an overall better device. If you know you want an Android tablet to game on, this entire package at only $399, I would say is one of the better ones out there. I mean, this does feel like a proof of concept device, and Razer did not take any risks on this. But I think this is a good first start. If this thing sells enough and the team who made this gets the green light to make a version 2, I think that's when we can start seeing some really interesting stuff coming out from the Razer Edge going forward. But yeah, I'm just going to leave it at that. All right, guys. Thanks a lot. Bye.